Alicia, Adrian and their children Lorelei and Elliot love their tree change life. A few years ago, they moved from an apartment in Brisbane to a farm in the hills north of Lismore to help Alicia's ageing parents care for the property.
Fresh air, green.
Clean water.
Clean water.
Lots of it.
When record rainfall turned the Northern Rivers into a disaster zone a year ago, they thought they were well clear of the danger. But then, just over the back fence, this.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like...
This is probably the biggest bit. It's about 5 hectares worth of landslide.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's quite shocking, actually.
The crumbling cliff is about 50 metres from their home. Does it feel safe living just above it?
If we get a lot of rain, I would be lying if I said I felt completely comfortable.
The landslide has wiped out a quarter of the farm, but the loss is also deeply personal. Alicia's mum spent decades on the mountainside hand planting a native forest.
She spent 20 years clearing all the weeds off and regenning it with my dad. And she passed away just before the floods. And I used to walk around and I used to think, oh, at least I'm walking the same land that she walked. And then now the landslides come and her footprints are gone. So, yeah, it's hard.
So it took away more than just the land and the trees. It
took away my mum's work and she wouldn't recognise it. She wouldn't know this place anymore.
The property is on the southern edge of a rugged mountain range formed 23 million years ago by the eruption of a now extinct volcano. It's where much of the water that flooded Lismore a year ago came from. More than 1,000 mils, 1 metre of rain, was recorded in some areas in just one day. This home near Mullumbimby was washed down a hill.
The flood event happened on top of already saturated soils. The sheer weight of all that water, coupled with things like slope, vegetation and soil type, resulted in thousands of landslides happening across the Northern Rivers.
Ivy Young has been helping landowners access grants to fix some of the most hazardous falls.
Still moving today, so it's really hard for people to be able to get in there and actually do work on the landslips.
When we travelled to the area a week after the floods, locals were doing it alone, fixing broken roads and using ropes and kayaks to carry supplies across rivers. A landslide had taken out Guanji Monks' driveway and a neighbour's front yard.
My biggest concern is that those two people, residents, are actually going to be in the actual house when it kind of comes down.
A year on, the house remains on edge.
Still there, just hanging on by, its dear life.
The residents have no plans to move.
It's been daunting. I mean, every time there's a thunderstorm or something like that, everyone's a little bit on edge.
A government grant is being used to build a rock retaining wall beneath the slip. Millions are also being spent fixing roads cut by landslides, including the popular tourist drive between Byron Bay and Nimbin. Along with the road, a slab of Peter Larson's farm crashed into the river below.
Just a valley that had disappeared, and then you're looking across the valley and there's more slips. It was just like an Armageddon. But it's still all around us. The more you look, the more you find.
It's been a major engineering challenge, but the road is close to being fixed. The same can't be said for Lena Svensson's backyard.
Wow, this is where it's all slipped away.
This is where it's all slipped away. So this is one half of the slip.
Yeah.
And where those dead trees are, it drops away again.
We're standing about 50 metres from Lena's back door. Seeing the mountain she grew up on washed away still brings strong emotions.
It's like a huge hole gouged in your leg or your arm. To me, it's the same thing. It's a wound and it's deep. Like a part of me was gone with it.
You still feel it looking at it now?
Totally. Yep. Yep.
You're doing okay?
Yeah, you think a year on you'd be sort of, on your game, but it's...
With so much damage, it's hard to know where to start.
It's beyond my capacity to repair this.
But fortunately for Lena, her landslide is one of a dozen in the area selected for a pilot drone seeding program.
It's an automated mission, which means it's being run by the computer.
The airseed drone drops tiny seed pods on key areas of the landslide. Each one contains several seeds and the nutrients needed to help them take root.
The root systems go into the soil and help start formulating that structure that holds everything together again.
So you're preventing it happening again?
Correct, yeah.
These Aussie-engineered drones can plant forests quickly. It's been designed to revegetate areas impacted by climate change disasters, like floods, fires and landslides.
Every single pod that's planted has its own GPS tag.
In a few months, they'll use the GPS tags to gauge the success of the mission.
How long would it take for humans to do what you're doing with drones?
A global average of digging holes, planting trees is around 800 seedlings per day. And we can fly one drone planting 40,000 seeds per day.
Meanwhile, across the valley, the huge task of repairing Alicia and Adrian's landslip is overwhelming.
The cost is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not something we'll ever be able to afford. We just have very limited time and money, but I feel a huge responsibility to regen it and keep it, restore it.
It will be a lifetime's work. Heavy machinery is needed to stabilise the site first, then hand planting and possibly drone seeding in hard-to-reach areas.
What's that one there? What's that one?
A weed.
A weed, isn't it? We've got to get rid of that one.
On the bright side, there are a couple of little helpers ready to lend a hand to Mum and Dad.
The kids are good at weeding.
They're very good. Elliot often says to me, "Oh, can we have a play date?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, what do you want to do?" And he goes, "I want to go get weeds." Yeah, right, let's go.
And I hope he wants to do that for a long time.
Oh, did I hear correctly in there that there have been thousands of landslides since the floods?
So it generally happened sort of either during the floods or in the days afterwards. So there was just all of this water that area that you saw there essentially sits above Lismore. So the floods that kind of poured into Lismore came from those mountain ranges. And what was interesting actually in two of those cases, Lena, who you met, where the drones were dropping the seeds, and also the family there at the end, they didn't actually know the landslide happened for some days because the rain was so loud, they had no idea that the earth moved. And it was only, a few days later that they actually sort of walked to the end of their backyard and found that this huge gouge had been taken out of the mountainside.
A wound, as we heard from the story, and it feels like so much of Lismore has been scarred by those floods, emotionally, mentally, physically.
Totally, and I think because these people live outside of Lismore in those smaller hill communities, I think they feel a little bit like they've been neglected in terms of the attention that's been on these problems. Clearly, and we're going to cover the story of Lismore tomorrow night on the project, there's been a huge amount poured into there to try and help restore and recover. In some of these little villages, hamlets, even just pockets of properties up in the mountains, they've been doing it pretty tough, I think it's fair to say.